Hey guys, as part of my year of rereading for 2021, I'm going to be talking about Atonement by Ian McEwan. Atonement by Ian McEwan begins in the summer of 1935, where we follow 13-year-old Bryony Tallis as she witnesses a flirtation between her older sister and one of their household servants. What follows is a crime and a lie that will forever change the lives of these three characters. Yes, I do have the movie cover edition of this book, yeah guys, and this is actually one of those rare instances where I was able to read the book before watching the movie. Sometimes that hardly ever happens to me, you guys. A lot of times I'll read a book after the fact, after an adaptation or whatever. But yeah, this was one of those rare times I was able to literally squeeze out the book just a few weeks before the movie came out. And yeah, you guys, I freaking loved the movie. James McAvoy, Keira Knightley, and yeah, a young Saoirse Ronan. Yeah, guys, I definitely recommend the movie just for little young Saoirse Ronan, because she just it blows everything just out there, you guys. I love her. She's just such a great actress. But yeah, this review, this discussion is not about the movie. I could go on about the movie. But yeah, Atonement by Ian McEwan. I love this book, you guys. I don't know if I should say love this book, because this is a pretty dark and depressing book. But it's the writing. It's the writing. It's the beautiful writing. Just a beautiful story. Is it a beautiful story? I don't even know. It's hard to talk about this book because there's a lot of depressing things, you guys. Whenever I think about Atonement, depression comes to mind. But yeah, Atonement, this is part of my year of rereading for 2021. I've not read this book in an incredibly long time. I started Goodreads back in 2011, and I don't have this book documented as a reread anywhere in there from 2011 till now. So yeah, I think the last time I read this was before 2011, I'm assuming, since I don't really have it documented on Goodreads. So yeah, Atonement is definitely one of those types of books that requires rereading. It requires multiple reads, especially once you do get to the very, very end of this book and certain plot elements come together, certain things are revealed to you. Definitely some really shocking twists and turns. Once things are revealed to you, it's kind of one of those things like, huh, and you want to instantly kind of pick it back up and reread it again to kind of see if you're picking up on certain little details, that were kind of hinting and teasing with you all along, So yeah, as I've been doing with all of my books this year for my year of rereading, I'm going to be sharing with you my 5 reasons why I love this book, and maybe they'll persuade you to read this book if you haven't already. And yeah, this book is definitely known for its twist ending. That's all I'll say. But yeah, for the sake of this review, I'm definitely going to try my best to stay as far away from spoilers as I can. If I accidentally kind of am vaguely hinting at something, I'm sorry. It's just really hard to talk about this book. And yeah, it's definitely hard to talk about this book and, the reasons why I love it without kind of maybe hinting at, some of the stuff that happens at the end. But yeah, I'm going to definitely do my best and not to go into spoiler territory, because this book, the less you know, the better. So the first thing that I love about this book in particular is just the overall narrative layout of the book, I guess I'll call it. This book, for the most part, is divided up into 3 very distinct sections that all form kind of the greater whole of this story. Part 1 of this book takes place in the summer of 1935. We are following the Tallis family at their ancestral home. We are introduced to 13-year-old Bryony Tallis, who has a wild imagination. She loves to write. We're introduced to her older sister Cecilia, and we're also introduced to their household servant, I guess I would call him. Not really sure what else to call him. His name is Robbie. And yeah, in this 1935 part 1 scenario, little Bryony Tallis, she's witnessing some flirtation and some scandalous things, I shall say, that happen between her older sister and yes, Cecilia and Robbie, their servant. She witnesses something that to her 13-year-old eyes she can't quite comprehend because she's still a child. She doesn't understand human emotion, human behavior, I shall say. So she's very naive. So yeah, and then what happens as a result of her kind of witnessing some things that she can't quite understand and process, what transpires by the end of part 1, without giving away too many spoilers here, a crime and a lie happens. Let's put it that way. And then that leads directly into what happens in part 2. Part 2 of this book is Robbie at Dunkirk during World War II, in a very graphic, brutal chapter, and what Robbie's kind of having to go through. And then, yeah, part 3 of this book, we are with Bryony, who is now 18 years old, kind of here during the war. She's working as a nurse, and she's kind of witnessing firsthand a lot of the trauma and chaos that is happening while she's working at a hospital and whatnot. And, wounded people are coming in, they're missing limbs, or they're missing chunks of their face, or they're just dying right there in front of her. So yeah, that's a big part of what I love about this book, is kind of that divide, that the 3 stories that are going on in this book. And what I love kind of about that layout, because part 1, like I said, we're taking place in the summer of 1935. War is, right there on the horizon. It's coming. And the way Ian McEwan sets up this narrative, I think it's just really cleverly done in some ways, because he sets up the story and you're almost kind of fooled, into this false sense of, like, I don't know, like, just casualness, I guess. When you're introduced to the story, you're introduced to the characters, Ian McEwan, he's very just casual with the story initially. He's in no urgent, pace with it. It's very casual, it's kind of slow. There's like a calmness to it, if you will. There's an innocence to it. And I love how this novel starts. You're kind of fooled into this sense of relaxation, that there's nothing coming. And then you have part 1, and part 1 ends in a rather tragic, complicated place, and that leads very, very nicely into parts 2 and 3, where it's 5 years later now. At this point in the novel, you're deep into the heart of World War II, essentially, and you're there with Robbie in Dunkirk, and you're there with Bryony in the hospitals with wounded soldiers and whatnot. So that's what I mean about what I like about kind of the 3-layer, I guess, 3-layer structure of this story, kind of that relaxation, that casualness of part 1, and then all of a sudden, you're dumped into, just pure chaos and terror and fear, and yeah, that's where a lot of kind of just the more dark and depressing subject matter really comes in. And yeah, I really like Ian McEwan, just the writing there, I really like his writing in particular with this novel, just the casualness of part 1, juxtaposed with the dreariness of parts 2 and 3. It's rather brilliant and clever, I think, and really allows you to get into the story, I think, and to really feel with these characters. So, the second reason that I love this novel is the role of the storyteller. So, on the surface, you have Ian McEwan, who is your storyteller. He is the guy writing this story. But then, a lot of this novel is also, in some ways, kind of through the point of view of a 13-year-old and 18-year-old Bryony Tallis. Those varying sides of her when she's 13 and when she's 18, how she's thinking as a child at 13, how she's thinking as an adult at 18. A lot of the stories kind of told through her point of view in some way. So yeah, the role of the storyteller. Once again, another brilliant thing that's going on in this book, because yeah, Ian McEwan himself is telling a story. There's something he is saying here. There's certain themes that he's getting across. But Bryony herself, as a character, she is a storyteller as well. We find out immediately on page 1 of this novel that Bryony, her family is having a get-together. Her older brother is arriving with a guest to come dine with them that evening. Her cousins are coming. Everybody is arriving at the Tallis ancestral home, and everyone, it's a big get-together, and Bryony has every intention of, that first night when everybody gets there or whatever, she has every intention of putting on like a little stage performance because she loves to write. She has a very active, wild imagination, and she puts that to use by writing stories. We see her throughout the book. She's either writing short stories or she's writing, the play that she has that she wants everybody to perform. The thing is, though, Bryony, she's 13 years old, but she doesn't quite grasp the thing that, hey, my little cousins, I'm gonna hire them essentially to put on this play for me. She doesn't quite grasp that, hey, they're little kids and they can't act. She has this wild imagination and this whole thing like, oh, my play is going to be so amazing and it's going to be so well acted. And her cousins, they come, they start speaking the lines that she has written, and it's butchered. The play is absolutely butchered, and she is heartbroken and devastated, and she can't believe what has happened to her beautifully crafted baby here. So I love that. Bryony herself as storyteller. And she does, throughout this book, even when she's 18, she continues to still try to produce short stories. She's sending out stories, over the course of the war. She's telling us that she has sent out stuff to publications, but she's received quite a number of rejection letters and whatnot. And so Bryony as the storyteller, she's coming to realize, she thinks so highly of herself. She has such confidence about her writing, but realistically, then she's getting those rejection letters and whatnot, and she's starting to realize, oh, what if I'm not that great of a writer? Why is everyone rejecting me and whatnot? And there is stuff. We do get another perspective of Bryony near the end of this book, where we know that she is having a wee bit of success with writing and whatnot when she is a much older woman. She is continuing that over the course of her entire lifetime and whatnot, without really sitting and spoiling anything, hopefully. And once again, Bryony as our storyteller. The thing is, this also opens Bryony up to being an unreliable narrator. And I love books that have unreliable narrators, you guys, because they always make for great twists and turns and reveals and whatnot. So that's what I was talking about earlier when I was mentioning that this book is very well known for kind of the ending that it has. It's because of Bryony as an unreliable narrator, and it's pretty genius. And I think I have seen stuff in the past before about this book that it's kind of a bit of an emotional manipulation, kind of some of the twists and turns that this book does take by the end. That may be the case, definitely, that it's an emotional manipulation in some ways, but Bryony, she's the storyteller, but Ian McEwan is also the storyteller, and he's trying to tell a particular story as well, So that doesn't bother me. The ending of this book has never really bothered me. Because at the end of the day, Ian McEwan, he did his job. I felt a certain way by this book, and I think, how he wanted me to feel by the end. My third favorite thing that I love about this book is the role of death in this book. So what do I mean by that? There is physical, literal death. Characters do die over the course of this book. Obviously, Robbie at Dunkirk, there's people just dying all over the place at Dunkirk. So there is physical, literal death in that sense. But what I also mean by death is, kind of this more thematic theme of death, if you will. There's the death of innocence for characters like Bryony, and for her, in particular for her cousin Lola. I think there's the death of something like sexual innocence for characters like Cecilia and Robbie. There's even the death of memory when we get to kind of some later things in the book, and we do see an elderly version of Bryony, and she's kind of going through some memory problems. She gets a bad diagnosis about something that's happening to her. That's kind of all I'll say about that because I don't want to spoil too much there. But yeah, the death of memory from, you know, old age and whatnot. And then I think a big thing in regards to this novel is the death of an era, essentially. Because, you know, World War II, essentially, kind of even really starting with World War I, but yeah, with World War II, it really is kind of the death there of an era. You know, just the nature of how society and the world functioned prior to World War II, and, you know, World War II really changed a lot of stuff and how society kind of ran and how people kind of just treated other people and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of what I mean about that, like the death of an era, the end of an era, essentially, you know, following World War II and whatnot, and kind of that emergence into what we would probably nowadays call modern society, pretty much. So yeah, that's what I love about this book as well, is that whole notion, you know, just death, literal death, but also thematic death. Ian McEwan just does a really brilliant job with that. And I don't think that was something I particularly really noticed the last time I read this book. I really noticed it a lot, in particular for my current reread. I was really paying attention to that, and it really just struck me during this reread. My fourth favorite thing about this book is the honest and raw characters. The great thing about this book, and what Ian McEwan just so marvelously does, these characters are just real human beings. They come across as real, just truly real people. They do things that upset you. They say things that upset you. These characters are not like perfect at all. They are incredibly flawed. They are very human at the end of the day. The things that they do, the things that they say, their motivations and whatnot, the decisions they make, the risks that they take, you know, the emotional states that they are in when they do the things that they do or say or whatever. I love that about all of these characters, and as I said, they are very honest and raw. That's what makes them human beings at the end of the day. And then kind of on the opposite end of that, you know, sometimes you'll go your whole life thinking that you know somebody, but then they do or say something and you just don't understand it or comprehend it, and that will always be a mystery to you. Like, okay, why did they say that? Why did they do that? You know? So, and that's very much the thing here in this book. There's, you know, you'll get to know a number of the characters pretty well, but then some of them, the whole novel, you spend the whole novel going, okay, why did they do that? Why did they say that or something? And that's never fully wrapped up. You know, you're kind of left unsatisfied with maybe a conclusion with a character, and you want more. But that's also kind of the nature of just real life as well, that sometimes you'll know people very well and then other people you won't, and it's just always going to be remain a mystery. So I like that too with how Ian McEwan interprets these characters, you know, the ones that are very incredibly human, and then the other ones that it's like, okay, why, you know, why? And my fifth favorite thing about this book is that it's just a beautiful novel, you guys. In general, this is just a beautifully well-crafted novel from start to finish. Yes, it's dark and depressing and rather dreary, but Ian McEwan, his writing is just absolutely gorgeous, and I just never really feel like there's a flaw to it. Like I said back at the very beginning of this review, Ian McEwan, the nature of the novel as you're starting it's very casual and relaxed in some ways, and the pace is rather slow. You know, not slow necessarily in a bad way, because I definitely wasn't bored, but just the way he writes this book, because you spend a good little while kind of wondering, okay, what's the point? Where is this going ultimately? And it takes Ian McEwan a good little time to kind of set up the big event that happens to lead into, you know, the remainder of the last half of the book and whatnot. But I love that. I love that casual, relaxed pace of the beginning of the book, and then you're thrown right there into the Dunkirk chapters, and then Bryony and, as a nurse in the hospital and whatnot, where the pacing is a lot more rapid and quick, and it's really chaotic and whatnot. I love that whole thing. So yeah, despite the dreariness, despite the depression of this book, it's just, once again, meticulously well crafted. I think there's a lot of attention to detail, and just in general, just so beautifully written. And yeah, despite that depressing aspect of it, there's still something oddly kind of beautiful about it as you reach that ending, and you're feeling kind of a certain way about this book by the end. So yeah, you guys, that's it for my thoughts about Atonement by Ian McEwan. I freaking love this book, despite the insane ending, I shall say. So yeah, you guys, have you guys read Atonement by Ian McEwan? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did my discussion about it, did it provoke you into wanting to go pick it up? Or maybe not, I don't know. So you guys, that is it on my thoughts and feelings on Atonement. In the comments below, just share your thoughts with me. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.